That, hair can take away from that, but the relaxing of rules can take away from that.
When I put my uniform on, I would be the guy that would be ironing my, my epaulets and making sure that the uniform is nice and tight and sure that my boots are shining. Like I took pride in wearing that uniform.
Do you think there's less pride in wearing the uniform today than, say, there was 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
For sure. When I walk through bases, sometimes I shake my head and I got to bite my tongue. No care or pride for the uniform that they're wearing. Long hair, painted fingernails. Then the onus is on the professional to wear the uniform and be highly turned out. It shows that you have attention to detail. It shows that you're a professional. So should you ever be in a combat situation, that's the type of people, that type of discipline gets transferred into a stressful, chaotic situation where that individual is paying attention to detail, which means it could be the difference between life or death. So although it seems arbitrary, like why are you so worried about somebody's uniform, the question might be asked. If they are unable or unwilling to take care of themselves, how are they going to take care of, the person to the left or to the right?
In September 2022, the Trudeau government introduced sweeping changes to the dress and deportment regulations of the Canadian Armed Forces, abandoning almost all standards on members' hair length, hair color, nail length, and facial tattoos, along with new gender-neutral uniforms, breaking with 100-year-old traditions and virtually every other country in the world, all in an attempt to theoretically appeal to a broader cross-section of Canadians. But the blowback from members was swift, and in July 2024, the government reluctantly walked back many of the changes. But alterations to dress, pronoun policy, and even a bizarre new logo were hardly the only cultural and social changes being pushed on the CAF.
A 1-hour multiple-choice test known as the CFAT. It scores applicants' verbal skills, spatial ability, and problem-solving. The military has scrapped the test during the application process. Recruits will only take it after they've joined up, and scores won't matter.
In another attempt to enlist more Canadians into uniform, the Trudeau government decided to relax entry requirements for those who otherwise wouldn't qualify for the job, while even more controversially introducing what's known as diversity quotas, where recruits were selected or prioritized based on their gender, race, or other immutable characteristics, rather than solely on merit. A policy that is alleged to have also applied to promotions within the ranks, and that is part of what's known in the corporate world as DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion.
One of the other things as part of this recruitment, because we're short so many personnel in the military, has been diversity quotas based on race, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, gender. Do you think they're helpful? Or do you think they're actually kind of a distraction, missing the bigger picture?
Frankly, Aaron, I think they're dangerous, is what I think they are. There are certain occupations where if you don't go with meritocracy, it's dangerous. I mean, and the military is one of them. You're giving these people weapons and arms, and they're driving tanks and flying fighter aircrafts and everything else, and we're not choosing the best to do that? Where the actual person, man, woman, black, white, whatever that person might be, the best one for the job might not even get a foot into the recruiting office.
If you can do the job, then you do the job, period. Stop talking. There's nothing else. Don't care who you sleep with, don't care what you look like, don't care what you want me to call you. Can you shoot? Can you move? If you impede that, you become a liability. No, I don't want you in the foxhole. And I don't feel bad about that, because I want to be alive more than I want to respect your feelings. So to act as if we need to fill quotas, that DEI gets people killed.
And I guess I feel that it also takes away from those women or those of other ethnicities who are deserving.
Absolutely.
Because then people will question, did they get the promotion because of their actual skills and accomplishments?
100%. And of course, I know many outstanding women that I served with, including my own spouse, and that is something that annoys the hell out of them, right? Because certainly now people look at them and go, well,
And if I'm resentful because this person beside me, I know that I'm a better fill in the blank than this person, but I didn't get the job because this person fits a quota, how is that going to foster teamwork? That's just it's going to be horrible.
When you put too much emphasis on identity issues and gender issues in the military, then you start to do Unfortunately, what I think our Prime Minister is doing is you're dividing people.
Who wants to be part of an organization where perhaps you're promoted based on your race and gender? The reason for the pride wasn't because you joined some club. It wasn't because it was easy. It was because it was hard.
So this is not good for, like, we have to not think about that stuff when you're out there, right? You got to think about the mission. And if all this other extraneous stuff is floating around, you're not going to be effective.
I believe they put these in under the argument that this would, the military would now appeal to a wider subset of people and we'd be flooded with new recruits, but that hasn't happened either.
It has not happened. It has not helped at all.
I think it's actually turned more people away and accelerated the problem around retention, where people say, this is not what I signed up for.
But rather than help recruiting, the government's policies around dress and culture seem to have done the exact opposite, with even Justin Trudeau's own defense minister acknowledging that recruitment under his watch was, quote, in a death spiral. But just how bad is it? And is retaining those already in uniform while maintaining their morale proving to be an even greater concern?
We are 16,000 people short of our establishment, regular and reserve. That is the lowest level of personnel readiness I've seen in over 35 years of service and 60 years of consciousness in and around the armed forces, because I grew up as an Army brat. It's that critical middle portion of the sergeants and the warrant officers and the sergeant majors, the captains, lieutenant colonels, colonels, who are voting with their feet.
And how do you replace those guys? It takes 15 or 20 years to replace them. So it doesn't matter how well you bring people in or how fast. You're going to have to get them trained to get up to that level. So, and who do you need to train these recruits that are coming in? You need the schools and you need the instructors. Who are the instructors? Captains, majors, sergeants, and warrant officers. You see what I mean? It's kind of a self-licking ice cream cone.
As you lower the numbers of people that are available, you're now drawing on a smaller pool of people to do all the same work. So those people become burned out and they get frustrated and they leave.
What do you hear about morale from people that are in right now?
I hear that it no longer feels like a military that's concerned with combat capability. I get daily phone calls from members of the military, almost daily. People just done. Totally done.
Because after a whole bunch of years of service, they're tired of, first of all, being short staffs, which means they individually have to do a lot more. They're tired of not having equipment which would suffer or which you could survive in a few minutes in fighting a foe such as Russia. And as well, they're tired of a government that turns their back on them when they need it most. And they need support, encouragement, and money now more so than in the past 50 years.
Clearly, there is more than one reason behind the recent exodus of senior members from Canada's armed forces. Housing and affordability concerns near bases, continued frustration with unnecessary and forced relocation, but also the constant attacks on the military's culture, traditions, and fundamental values, or what some in the government have called toxic masculinity.
When you start doing things like DEI to a war-fighting machine, what do you think's going to go wrong? It brings and breeds a different behavior that is not conducive to violence or war or preparation. So the people that are the war fighters, the ones that have been in for the 25 years, have been in the 27 years, who did Bosnia, who did Rwanda, who did Iraq, who did Afghanistan, who did Syria, all the actual real war fighters are going to leave.
The whole culture issue, describing it as toxic masculinity, frankly, I think that has also had a very, very detrimental impact on the mindset of those who want to join or who might have joined, and those who are still in, when it comes to the unfair judgment, frankly, that has been placed upon them.
Of course, there were situations, and we all saw it over the last few years. We saw individuals coming to the forefront in media exposure because of some of the stuff that they did while they were in uniform. So rather than hitting it with, a individual approach where we call this person out as an individual, it was like a blanketed statement or a policy change that everybody was treated the same way.
The only thing they could come up with, the government is so brilliant at virtue signaling, so that was an easy one to come up with. And I'm not saying that there aren't victims, like I would never say that, and I'm sure there were situations that shouldn't have happened, as there probably are in every organization, and we